what Black people are getting wrong. We know what our problems are. We want to talk about the solutions. And sometimes it's okay to disagree. We don't always have to agree to disagree. We can just really just disagree, and that's okay too. So my goal with the show is to make sure that we're having different conversations. There are Black conservatives, there are Black liberals. Everybody's not sold out. Some people put Black, still put Black first. And understand that if you have a different position, it doesn't mean that you're not putting Black people first. You just have a different approach. And my goal is that we understand that there's room for all of us across the board: progressives, Democrats, conservatives. So listen with an open mind to the conversation tonight. Also listen with understanding that a talk show is literally a 45-minute conversation, that has been edited for commercials. That is what makes Twitter Space so awesome, because you guys can flush it out and stay on as long as possible. So I will certainly, and again, my platform is your platform. Anything I can do to advance the conversation on my podcast, to so folks can hear that, I'm happy to do so. And so I just appreciate you taking the lead, Nyhiem, and doing this on your own. I didn't ask you to do this. This is just, you were excited to do it on your own. And so I just wanted to come in and salute you for that. And I'll be listening and trying. I'm gonna try my best to stay out the way. So I'm gonna stay out the way. And I'm, I'm just gonna listen. But I do. And just for those in the building, I'm just curious. I want to do a quick poll. Put a 100 up if you did watch the show. I'm curious. Him and I, we talked about something. I was like, oh, Nyhiem, go back and watch this one part. We pointed it out. So I hope you guys had a chance to watch it. If you did not, still stay for the conversation, still chime in, but still do yourself a favor and go listen to what a conversation sounds like between a Black conservative and a Black liberal. And so I'll turn it over to you.
Oh, honors, and thank you, Sister Tez. I truly, truly appreciate that. And it was a great debate. First and foremost, I love the way you moderated the debate, and it was like certain things that were said. It's like, okay, well, let's flesh this out. We ain't gonna just say things and then move on to the next subject. How does what you just said look, etc. And I'm gonna get into some of that as we get on in the discussion. Ibrahim, all right, Ibrahim is getting himself together. Check I gave you the co-host already. And because I don't know if we're gonna play some clips from it yet. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm ready to get into this thing, but I don't want to start until my bro is ready. Okay, there go Ali. So we waiting for Josh. We're gonna have a BTP. We're gonna do our BTP thing today. I'm trying to read, press buttons, and do everything at the same time. My bad, y'all. So just give us a few minutes to get everything going, and we're gonna start from there. But what I'll say in the meantime, in between time, is that we rarely get to see Black conservatives like a Sonnie Johnson in the mainstream space, if you will. Our idea of what a Black conservative is a Candace Owens or a Larry Elder, and the many quote unquote Black faces that you could think of that the Republican Party elevates, because they elevate a message that counters the spirit of our people in this country. And so when you hear someone like Sonnie Johnson going in and you hear a message that counters what they say, and it's in alignment with the things that you hold as, one who's a social conservative, right? I'm not a conservative, but I would consider myself a social conservative because I believe in certain things and certain values, et cetera, that are shared within the conservative ideology. There's a few things in liberalism that I also agree with, right? And to hear a debate with someone like a Sonnie Johnson and Gary Chambers, I just thought it was great. I know the Republican debate was on last night, but I didn't watch it. I seen some of the clips. They're saying Nikki Haley they said she won the debate, not kinda. They're saying she won. She killed the brown bigot Vivek Ramaswamy when he brought up her daughter, and she played the abortion. I seen the clips. I thought she played the abortion card great. I was like, ooh, that was good. Because now you're appealing not just to white Republican women who may agree with abortion, you're also appealing to white women on the left who absolutely agree with abortion. So it's like, okay, I have this viable candidate over here on the right. Not saying that Democrats would vote for Nikki Haley. I'm just saying I thought that was a smart move that she made last night. So, Ali, how do you want to start this conversation off? Ibrahim, I'm waiting for Josh as well because we wanted to kind of get into some things and then lead into the debate. And I'm ready to go. I'm just ready to I'm ready to get into the debate. So I don't know if y'all want to lead off with, some opening commentary and then we dig in, or if y'all just want to get into it.
Well, peace, bro. I just wanted to first start off by thanking Tezlyn for even having that conversation because it was a very enlightening conversation, and it was important that it was had. And I appreciate the fact that she was able to do that and present both sides of that particular conversation. So I just wanted to thank her for that. And she did an excellent job moderating because it definitely, as said, Taz on 10, it definitely, turned up in certain aspects. And so it was good. My initial thing, I'm gonna just say this. In terms of it being a debate, I don't necessarily, just from what I heard, I don't necessarily say anybody won, one side won a debate or whatever. But what I see it as is they were both presenting two different perspectives on how to approach I would believe that's the idea. So how to approach it, to approach the issues of our people from a conservative perspective or from a liberal perspective. Now, my thing is, I agree with you. I have certain things that I agree with from both sides, but I tell you this, and I'm just going to keep it all the way 100. The problem when you start talking about black men straying from the Democratic Party, one of the main things is, yes, like Gary Chambers was talking about, brothers wanting to be able to make the money to take care of their families, right? Obviously, that's a primary issue. But two of the other main issues that we're going to have to really deal with is the issue of immigration and how that affects our people and all of this LGBTism, because what it appears is that the Democratic Party has become the party of the LGBTQ and immigration. And for a lot of us, that's a problem, like what we're seeing in terms of immigration, what we're seeing in places like Chicago and New York and California, etc. And then also you see the issue with LGBTism coming up in people's schools where they're imposing a lot of this stuff on the children. So this is becoming a problem, not just for black men, but for a lot of Americans. It just so happens that black men expressing that their displeasure with all that stuff as well.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. And yeah, we're gonna get into some of that because Chambers, he made a remark in that regard about the Constitution, right? And I kind of want to go in the chronological order, if you will, based on how the debate opens up. And Ibrahim, let me know when you're ready, bro. I sent you the co-host invite as well. Josh, I don't know where Josh is at. Josh will be on in a few. So, Tez asked Sonnie, what is conservatism? Like, give us a breakdown of what conservatism is. And I thought she did that, right? I thought she spoke to the conservative idea of starting with self-accountability. Now, Sonnie and I have had several debates. We've had several debates on certain things, and we respect each other's position. But when it's styled as a debate, and the things that I'm looking for in a debate is who's sticking to the topic and answering the questions, whether I agree or disagree with their answers or not. And I felt that when these questions were being asked, Sonnie was answering those questions, because Chambers then flipped that into an every man for himself argument. And I was like, that's not what it was, right? And so uh, I listened to both of them say, I'm gonna scale back a little bit, because I listened to both of them say that they're not, or they go against their respective parties. Now, I don't know if Gary, I've not seen it, so I'm gonna keep it 100%. I've not seen Gary Chambers where he went against the Democratic Party, right? I've watched Sonnie, because I'm in her spaces frequently, debate with people from her party, those very people that Gary Chambers were speaking about. I watched Sister Tez go on Fox News just the other day and excoriate the Dems for not giving the Democratic voting base another choice beside Joe Biden, or whom we on this side call Jim Crow Joe. So I've not seen that from Gary. Now, I'm going to pretend like I've seen all of his stuff, but I've seen the Breakfast Club interview. I've seen several interviews that he's done on the Young Turks, et cetera, et cetera. I've not seen that thing where you've directly challenged someone from the Democratic Party. And if that information is out there, video, et cetera, please send that to me. Now, just back to the definition of a conservative, Sonnie broke down what conservatism meant when she spoke about self-accountability and family, right? And there go Josh right there, right? She spoke about self-accountability and family, number one. Number two, being stewards of the community. And number three, being grounded in the Constitution. And for her, if my interpretation of her words were correct, that was the Bill of Rights. Though, those first 10 articles, I believe that's what she's speaking about, which is the anti-federalist provision into the United States Constitution. Hence, those whom are conservative, those whom are Republican, are always fighting for smaller government. So I thought she situated that point perfectly. I wasn't sure on Chambers's response to exactly what liberalism was. Ibrahim or Josh, I don't know if y'all can give a breakdown to that, because I want one of y'all to jump in as well. I don't want to, because y'all know I'll keep going and going and going, and then we'll all just keep going and going and going. So did y'all hear Gary Chambers give a breakdown of what liberalism means to him? Yeah, because he made a statement that the Democratic Party markets itself as being for everybody. And I see we have a specific ideology on this side of things. And when we hear phrases like that, it triggers something within us because everybody usually means everybody else. And we're never included in that everybody. And we're gonna flesh that out. Uh Teslin asked Sonnie, why do people think that the Republican or conservative, why does that conjure up basically the image of the white male? And Sister Sonnie said that it was true, and she gave a historical breakdown as to why that was. She spoke about the initial Republican Party, which consisted of freedmen, and how after the Civil War the Lily White movement formed inside of the Republican Party, and they fought to push out the freedmen from that party. And so, she conceded on those points, and I think highlighted why she, as a conservative, fights back against those very people. And I may have a bias because I've heard her have those debates before.
Absolutely.
You see what I'm saying? I've heard her have those debates where she just be cooking. I've seen straight up racists come into her Twitter space that claim to be Republican, and she absolutely destroyed them. So, what are some of y'all's, like, because I want to get into it. I got my notes, but I want the team to jump in and out because I know Ali is going to get into the constitutional part that Gary Chambers is talking about. I was like, oh my God, what is this guy saying? Where did he learn that at? And we're going to get into the Garrisonian school of thinking and how what Garrison taught about the Constitution still lives today, and not what Frederick Douglass had came to learn about the Constitution and why he fell back from William Lloyd Garrison. So Josh or Ali, did y'all have anything that y'all wanted to share based on what y'all have heard so far before we move forward?
Josh, you there? Go ahead, Josh.
Nah, this your wheelhouse, Ali. You got it.
So you wanna touch on the
Well,
Constitution
not yet.
part now, or not
Not
yet?
yet.
Yeah, because
Not
I
yet. I
didn't
wanna
I
I
didn't
wanna
want to.
I wanna get into it, right? Because the debate pretty much kind of opens up when Sonny starts breaking down the fact that the Democratic Party is in control over those black areas, which, it's a fact. The Dems control many of these liberal states that Gary Chambers brought up. Not only are they in control of those states, they're also in control over cities in those states and in southern states. And I'm going to get in a little bit later. I'm going to get into how in southern states with Republican governors, black people are actually doing better than they're doing in those liberal states that Gary Chambers spoke about, and in the cities that we populate as well. So I think that when Sonny got back to speaking to the conservative idea of starting with the self, right? That self accountability, and we've kind of sparred over this. We've had a recent debate. Me and Ali
Yeah,
was up in
yeah,
her
yeah.
space right a couple weeks ago on the Jay-Z thing. Well, well, let me say now that if he would have said what you just said, I would have had to give him that point. He didn't. To me, he didn't break it down that way. Instead, he flipped it into an every man for himself argument, right? But then he turned and pointed to a few outliers and individuals, right? He spoke about billionaires, and you see in the cutaway, Oprah and there's a bunch of billionaires that
Michael Jordan,
Jordan, et cetera, that
Biggie.
popped up on the screen. But and then he said, but we do have black wealth. He said we do have black wealth. So in my estimation, I thought he stepped on his own argument, right? Because you point to individual successes, and then you try to say, well, these people aren't really doing anything for the community, but you include them in the we having black wealth. If they're not doing anything, then you can't necessarily include them in the we. And we don't know if they're not doing anything. We don't know what type of black charities they give to, et cetera, et cetera. So,
Now, can I just chime in? I said I
oh,
was
definitely.
because I really do want to hear what you have to say, but I do want to give this editorial note because this is important. So the cutaways, guys, I'm always trying to teach people behind the scenes. The cutaways have nothing to do with Gary. And I know a lot of people have made comments, oh, why was this person on the screen or that person on the screen? So these are editors that are just packaging this. It has nothing to do. When we had this conversation, it was a raw conversation with nobody on the screen anywhere. So I do want to make sure, just for the integrity of the conversation, that you guys are not associating it, because somebody even said, why is such and such up there with Malcolm X? I'm like, just focus on the content. I did not choose who went on the screen, and the producers really have nothing to do with the conversation, and they don't live in our activism space, so they're not looking at the same way a lot of people I'm just giving an example. Let's say we know that in the conscious community, Oprah's not people are not a fan of Oprah. We would all agree with that. Put a 100 in the chat if you agree with that. People who are not in this conscious space look up to Oprah. So you have to keep in mind that the show, these are not editors from the conscious space. This is why I keep wanting to involve you guys in what I'm doing, because we do need different voices at the table. It's not the Illuminati. It's not nobody made them do it. It's not puppet strings and all of these made up things. It's just everybody's not familiar with this side of the conversation. So I do want to be clear about that when they were talking, they were not talking to any of the cutaways. They had nothing to do with that at all. Just wanted to give you that editorial note.
Duly noted. Duly noted.
And also, I just want to say this on Gary's behalf. He has absolutely challenged the Democrats, without a doubt. In fact, the first clip that you saw that they showed him, he was talking to Democrat leaders. So he has certainly done that, just in integrity. But I do appreciate you also saying you haven't seen everything that he's done, and that's also helpful. But yeah, please don't hold those edits to me or the guests. And to further make sure that I'm committed on that, I've even talked to producers about, making sure that during that process, that every single, every single thing that I'm involved in that, because I know how it can be a misconception with the viewer. And that's why I'm listening to you guys. I'm not going to sit here and correct everything, because I really want to know what you received, not what the intent was or what we tried to do. I'm interested to hear what you guys received, but I thought that editorial note was important. Thank you.
No, thank you. No, thank you. Thank you. And that's, like I said, duly noted, and that's pivotal in the understanding, because people were saying, I've seen some of the comments. People, I think we've even said that among ourselves about certain things. I actually took a note. I was like, Malcolm X popped up. I was like, right? I actually took a note. So I'm glad that you said that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I got plenty of notes. I'm like, wait a minute now, hold up, because some of the people I wouldn't have put on the screen either. But see,
no doubt.
That's a good example. That's why, Nyhiem, when I say people, instead of building relationships and stop thinking everybody's against you that has a show or in the quote unquote mainstream media or ever. No, it's about having a relationship and talking. At least with me, I'll tell you, hey, this is what they did. This is what, now everybody may not be that transparent, but for me, I want you to know the process. some things are people are being puppet strings. You know, some things are strategic, some things are, you know, but in this case, you best believe anything that my name's on, I'm gonna be as transparent as I possibly can. Like I told them, my brand is associated with this. So when you go see that, you're thinking, oh damn, but she put, there was one particular person, I won't throw that person's name out, but that's not somebody I would have put on the screen as a leader. You know what I mean? So they don't know that. These are college students, a lot of these editors that are just, a lot of them, they see them as leaders because that's what they see in the community. You know, that's what they've heard. So they, oh, this would be great to put it in the package. And typically, quote unquote talent, what my role would be, the host, is usually not an organizer. They're usually just talent, meaning they just moderate a good conversation. They're not on the ground. They're not having these conversations. They don't know what you're talking to you and talking to somebody else and go, you know what I mean? They don't have that insight. So it's not always trying to be against us. They just simply don't know and will never have any connection if the whole time, you know, people are shitting on me and or I'm not willing to have a conversation with you. Does that make sense? Like, let's just have a conversation so we can move better as a community. And why, again, for those who are listening, why I'm going to upload this conversation to Straight Shot No Chaser podcast. My podcast, we can sit on here for 5 hours straight. You can't do that in television. Television, you're sitting there, and even then that conversation was longer. Like, I have to sit there, we got to sit there a long time just to get 45 minutes of content. It's a lot of work. So these various platforms that at least I'm trying to use, people get mad. Oh, you should have said this on the Breakfast Club. I literally had 10 minutes on the Breakfast Club. I literally have 3 stories, 2 minutes a piece, 3 minutes a piece. I can't cover every single thing, you know. So I try to give as much game as I can. And thank you again, Nyhiem, for doing this on your own. You know, some people call it clout chasing. You don't have to chase the clout because I'm gonna give it to you. I'm literally handing you the clout to have the conversation. This is what white folks do. They put their stuff out. When I did on Fox News, they did 50 other things about it. Now, when people are coming for me, they make 100 videos about what they don't like. Now, where's the 100 videos about the conversation we just had yesterday on Revolt? But see, they're not, because they can't pigeon me put me in a box that they think I belong. Oh, she just hate conservative. That's not it at all. I don't like no coons. Let's be clear. I don't like coons.
Right. Exactly.
Black, conservative or liberal. I'm not fucking with you. But if you have a valid point, even if it's not a point I agree with, but what we're not going to do is put down black men, put down black women. We're not going to create this fake gender war. You know, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to have a real conversation. But I don't see none of them making no videos about this. So again, I shout out to you guys for having this conversation. You're welcome to do it on anything that I do. I will promote it myself, even if y'all are saying stuff that I may not agree with, because that's the whole point. Have the conversation after the conversation. And in this case, you can talk directly to the horse. You don't have to sit up and make it up and come and make up diss records and say all type of shit because you're trying to get hits and clicks. Let's just have a real conversation, you know, because I'm down to have it. You know, I got to throw that petty out there a little bit. But anyway, I'll throw it back. I just want to give that editorial note.
No doubt, definitely. Oh man,
maybe making diss records and 48-hour Twitter spaces and all kind of crazy shit.
Right. And for what? Like, I'm a spoken word artist, nigga. Let me get 16 bars. Let me get on it. Don't you think when I ran in 2011, I had an entire damn near an album. Literally. Even now, to this day, Niecy D got me coming to 2 weeks from now to Orlando doing a poem that I did in 2012. So you be better, instead of making a diss record, you should have told me to get on it and drop 16. That's how you advance. That's how you get the message out. That's how you make it move. You ain't gonna bully me into no conversation. You ain't gonna make me have no conversation. You ain't gonna tell me what to do. I'm not one of them. So I'm hoping people are saying this is how you build relationships. Sitting back, talking about mainstream media, they don't do this, they don't do that, because y'all don't know how to build no relationship with nobody. This is a relationship. Everything is a relationship. So anyway, I'm gonna get off my soapbox. I'm gonna turn it back over to you. I just
no doubt,
make that note.
Definitely, man. So for anybody that's just coming into the room, we are doing a recap of the debate that our sister Tezlyn Figaro hosted between Gary Chambers, who ran for, how I have his profile pulled up on U.S. Senate. Okay, I got it pulled up. I just didn't I'm not going to the computer right now. Very controversial figure on the left. The brother has done commercials, advertisements, political ads, smoking bud. You know what I'm saying? I just
burning the Confederate flag. I like that one.
yeah. We like that. We like that type of stuff over here. You already know we don't do no Confederates over here. But they had a good debate with Sister Sonnie Johnson. He had, a good debate with Sister Sonnie Johnson, who is a Black conservative. She does a radio show on Sirius XM, and it was basically, Ali called it. He said he didn't really see a winner or a loser. It was just two people expressing what liberalism is and conservatism is to them. And so, we're having a discussion about some of the things that they debated about. And so I'm gonna get back to that, because I want to start off with what Ibrahim led off with, where Sonnie said that we've always had more than enough to get us where we need to go. And the reason why I bring that up is I vehemently disagree with that, right? I 100% disagree with that. But in the spirit of the topic of a debate, where there are certain parameters, is not necessarily whether I agree or disagree with something. It's, did the individual stick to the premise and the parameters of the debate? And that's how I usually judge those discussions. So the next point was, because
I wanted to speak to that a little bit, because I also disagree with that, and that's where I would consider myself basically, like you said, a social conservative, where certain things we want to conserve. I don't know what white folks mean, particularly Confederates, what they mean by conservatism. Right? I have my idea what they mean by conservatism, but for me, it has everything to do with family values, the structure of the nucleus family, the nuclear family, what that actually is, being man, woman, and child, right? These are the kinds of things that I would conserve, right? And preserve that kind of stuff. I don't know what they mean. When they talk about conservatism, whether they're talking about states' right or the white man's right to own Negroes as property, if that's what they mean, then they're on something completely different. So I don't know what they mean by conservatism, but I know what it means to me on a certain level. But when it comes down to the issue of we all always have what we need, maybe morally, maybe spiritually, or the will to do X, Y, and Z. But the fact of the matter is, from a resource perspective, we have not always had what we needed. And then when we got the stuff that we needed, most of the times it was stolen from us or tricked away from us in some kind of way, right? So the fact of the matter is, coming out of slavery, this government understood that they needed to do something to help our families to try to get on a good footing in society so that we could actually access citizenship and everything that it has to offer. They had to do something. And this is where I part ways with a lot of Republican ideas when they start talking about small government and keeping government out of our affairs. The fact of the matter is, I understand us as being tax-paying citizens, right? The fact of the matter is, as tax-paying citizens, they're supposed to do things for us. And when we look at the history of it, they actually understood that themselves, hence the Freedmen's Bureau, the Freedmen's Bank. Although those things did not do what they were designed to do, they understood in essence that they owed us something, and that there was things that they were supposed to do and needed to do to make sure that we were okay as citizens in this country. That's where we part, because we know that we still need a lot of these things done for us, right? When you look at the economic reports that certain economists come out with, talking about 2053 and the wealth problem that we're going to face by the time 2053 gets here, or maybe even earlier. We know that there are certain things that were supposed to be done for our families that we had to instead deal with the policy of benign neglect. So we still need government intervention. And to me, as a tax-paying citizen and as a group of taxpayers, we're not going to just say we don't want government. We want them to do what they're supposed to do, and what was owed to our families the things that they didn't do, we would have inherited, would have put us in a better economic positionality in this country, and we never had that opportunity the way white people did. So that's where I disagree. We understand what Booker T. Washington did. He was a do for self. He's like one of the earliest proponents of do for self coming out of Reconstruction, but that didn't work for our people. Our people always did for self. We didn't just wait for the government to do. They always did for self, but at the same time, it never changed the economic position of our people in this country. Always been a bottom caste. Even with the millionaires and billionaires that we have, our billionaires at the bottom of the billionaires list. They ain't at the top. You know what I'm saying? You got white immigrants who are above our freedmen billionaires. That's not the way it's supposed to be. So I'm just saying that's where we part ways in certain ideologies in terms of what certain conservatives talk about in small government and getting government out. We need what we need from this government, and that's what I wanted to say about
Well,
that.
let's. Oh, go ahead, Josh.
No, I was just gonna ask a question because I think Ibrahim broke down the three parts that Sonnie, how she described her vision of a Black conservative, and I wanted to ask the question because there was a clip. I just thought of it because there was a clip earlier that I was looking at. I brought it up to y'all. Kennedy Jr., RFK Jr., excuse me, was on Earn Your Leisure talking about reparations, and he, has some slick stuff to say. He was saying race-based reparations is obviously unconstitutional, which is true, but that's race-based reparations. But he knew that most people don't know the distinction between race-based reparations, lineage-based reparations, and the On Your Leisure folks.
Ancestry-based.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, exactly, yes. A lot of people misclassify as lineage based, but yeah. But On Your Leisure, they rock with it. They just said RFK Jr. says why reparations is unconstitutional, and it fits their ideology of, hey, all you got to do is do for self. You got to get in business. You got to have the rugged individualism.
All you need to do is
Yeah, yeah. And I was equating that to like they're the people saying all you got to do is you got to get in shape, you got to exercise, you got to eat right, take these supplements. As a matter of fact, I got links for all of that. I got a link. I can say you all of that. I can say you my workout plan. I can say you the meal plan. I can say you weights. I can say you supplements. All I got you. All you got to do is. Meanwhile, you vast majority of people watching that, they got high blood pressure, they got diabetes, they got they got a back a herniated disc in their back, they got what I mean, they need a new kidney, they got cancer. But all you got to do is, now I equate that to like reparations would be like this, like getting some medicine, getting the medicine to deal with your high blood pressure, getting the the back surgery that you need to correct the herniated disc, getting an organ donor, what I'm saying, getting a chemo treatment or whatever you need to. So my question is, how does the individualistic mindset of that Sonnie describes, how is it different than the stuff, the do for self stuff that EYL pushes? And because that's one of the main issues that I had when Gary brought up the collective. I know we're gonna get into some of the how he kind of stepped on his own argument, as you say, but how does that compare to having the mindset of the collective as opposed to the do for self mentality? What do y'all
well,
think?
Ibrahim answered. I see the request. I'm gonna let people up in a few. This is a because we're trying to get and keep this conversation within a
Yeah, we got to
certain
get through
time
some
frame.
things
So we
first.
want to get through our points real quick. What you said, Ali?
No, we're just saying we have to get through. We have to get through some things before we bring up.
Yeah, then we gonna let the people up. Yeah, Ibrahim, what's your response to Josh's question?
I
Indeed,
just want to
indeed.
clarify real quick too. My point and my position is we've always been doing both, right? We've always been uh, trying to do for self or doing for self, and we've also always been we've been having no choice but to try to have a collective approach. And so it's just like, okay, why do we think that it's okay to separate the two, or that we need to do one or the other? So I just want to say, look, I think we need to do both. Individually, we need to do the best that we can do to move our families ahead, and collectively, we got to have a mentality of uh, making a collective push for collective political power. And Gary got into that some of that later when he got into the strategy back south, but some contradictions there too. Go back to you, brother Nyhiem.
All right. So what I'm gonna do? Go ahead. Woo, we turn we Tezing on 10 right now. We Tezing on 10 right now. Go ahead, Sister Tez.
Everybody, if you're just not tuning in, you're listening to Tez on 10, the recap, hosted by Be the Power. I wanted to throw out a question for you guys. I want to hear your answer on that, Nyhiem, because I, I basically what I'm hearing is that Gary did not, or at least you guys didn't hear his position on what a liberal is, and fair enough. But he did talk about one point, and I know we've had this conversation before, and I know you guys have this all the time on Twitter Space, which is having the ability to be able to talk, to have access to be in the room. And so, since you guys are reparationists, and you and I have talked about this, Nyhiem, on how the Republican Party, since you guys are talking about the do for self and the no government spending, how they feel about reparations. Now, I am one to believe that you guys need to take over the Republican Party, just like Black people need to take over the Progressive Party. They need to have more leaders that think like us in the Democrat Party. We need people all the way across the board. So I do understand the ideology of, hey, just get in and take over the Republican Party and make it be what you want it to be. But I do want to ask the question to you and to the room. What was your thoughts on Gary's point about, talking to people that will, more than likely never, be for reparations or be for the things that you advocate for? Because and again, there's a difference between conservative and Republican, and it doesn't matter how much it makes sense. And I hear the arguments on it's going to make sense, it's going to save the tax, it's going to put money back into the economy. The bottom line is one of the ideology in the Republican Party is that do for self and nothing else. They do not like spending taxes, period. And I know there's the argument of how it's not going to take out tax money and all that, but I just don't see it happening with the Republican Party. So one of his points was, why not work with progressives or Democrats or other, people that can, what they call closer to the dollar. So I want to know your thoughts, hear your thoughts on that, on what is it about, what is your journey being a conservative reparationist, and how do you see that party being able to advance that type of policy? Now, also for clarity, you guys know I believe in the local and state level. So commissioners and state reps and all of those, like we're seeing in these cities, that can push reparation style, policy that can eventually bump up to the federal. That's what I personally believe, and those are nonpartisan positions. But since you guys do talk about the federal level a lot in Congress and so forth, how do you see yourself, maneuvering that as a conservative in a party that doesn't like spending on anything, much less Black people?
Well, I just want to clarify. I'm not a conservative. I'm a social conservative. But I get what you mean, right? And I'm gonna answer your question by using some of Gary Chambers's words, because what you asked kind of segued into what I was about to get into. He basically has said that the only place that he could stand on his Blackness was in the Republican Party. Matter of fact, he said that, I think, verbatim, that the only place that the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party, not the Republican Party. And he said that the Democratic Party was the only place where we could have a seat at the table, and that at this table we would have debate, right? So in that, he didn't speak to any policy prescriptions at all. He just said we could have a seat at that table so that we could have the debate. And the Dems, they asked for our votes, and we give it to them only so that they could turn around and give benefits and advantages to other people. So I don't think that the solution lies with any of the political parties as they are situated, which is why, and I'll use Gary Chambers' words again here, we push for radical federalism, to whereas we flood our southern states where our ancestors were enslaved, that where we have somewhat of, well, I don't want to say majority, we don't have a majority, but where we have more of a demographic majority than we have in other states, right? So in New York City, you may have 3 million Black people, but that only represents 25% of the total population, whereas in Mississippi, you have less Black people, but that Black population makes up about 37% of that population. Then we get to elect our own senators. We get to take over.
But just remember, he pointed that out on the show.
That's right. No, that's right. That's right. That's right.
He said that it was Sonnie that was saying, well, everybody basically, just paraphrasing, everybody's not going to move to the South. He is all about that Southern strategy of, going there and having a Black representation. And Sonnie's position was, okay, like a lot of conservatives, we have all that representation, but still nothing's getting done. So he's aligned with you on that. Did you hear him say that part?
No, that's what I was saying. Like we definitely agree with like, see, we're not looking at this thing in the, like, we listen to someone like Roland Martin, right? He always shooting these little shots at us, talk about, you dumbasses, you need this amount of votes, and you're not going to get that from the Republican Party. But we're not going to get that from the Democratic Party, because as we point out often, the Democratic Party does not support reparations. Janet Yellen was asked during her trip to the slave dungeons on the west coast of Africa, now that you're here, basically, does this make you in the administration, want to do reparations? And she said, no, that's not something on our agenda, but we do speak about having other programs. When Tommy Tuberville opened up for Trump at that racist Klan rally in what is that, Mississippi, Tennessee, wherever the hell he's from. And he said
Alabama.
Alabama, they want reparations for the crimes that they commit. CBS News the next morning, what's her name? The sister. Gayle King did the report, and in that report, she highlighted a quote that said the Democratic Party does not actively support reparations. So reparations is something that we as a collective are going to take into our own hands. You know, that's just to directly answer your question.
Yeah, I want to add to that because I think when we give any type of pushback against or any opposition against a person that's on the Democrat side or a progressive side, then it's like, okay, you're against everything, or you're against that particular party. You must be conservative. We have a consciousness that comes from a perspective of, okay, there's conservatism, you got progressivism, but we look at things from a freedmanism perspective. So what freedmanism is we look at every policy, every piece of legislation or proposed policy legislation, every executive action, all these type of things, and any type of news, we look at it from the perspective of how does this positively or negatively impact our people today and our future generations. So when we look at things on the Democrat side, it may be something that positively impacts. When we look at something on the Republican side, it may be something that positively impacts, or vice versa, or negatively. You know what I mean? So, it's just that when it comes to reparations, obviously, it's something that both of them are going to have a position against, and it's because we don't have enough power to make that come to fruition. And so I want to say, when we look at a lot of things that the Democrat side, uh, the position that they take, what we see is a lot of times we see e-racism. And e-racism is, I look at e-racism as racism where it's like they are willing to let you be erased. And on the Republican side, we got straight up racism, good old fashioned racism, uh, that's in your face, that they don't want to include you on anything. The other one is like, okay, well, we're just going to overrun you. So that's when we look at things from the freedmanism perspective, we're able to see things. Okay, the grass is not green on either side, until we get enough power to be on either side, or we actually planted some grass. We just got red clay, or we got moss, so we don't have any grass. So uh, back to you, Nyhiem.
Wait, Mike, before you do that, can you expound on that? What is the reaction? I'm just curious. What reaction do you see with black women? What reaction is different? Is it more acceptable, not acceptable? Expound on that if you don't mind. I'm curious your thoughts. There, Pastor Scott. Pastor Scott. Uh-huh. Mm,
Yeah. Right.
yeah, I want to give a little bit of pushback to that. Well, your opinions, your certainly your opinion, so not some pushback, but I just want to give you some nuances. So I know Pastor Scott personally. When he was on the Trump campaign, we met in Cleveland. Pastor Scott's was absolutely not was criticized for various different. He has a very aggressive style. So a lot of his pushback, because basically he'll cuss you out, like straight up. I don't know if you get matter of fact, you can go listen to the podcast of Pastor Scott and I a couple of years ago under Straight Shot No Chaser, and his style of how he presented Trump and basically cussing folks out and going off on folks and saying how he introduced Trump to gangsters and all of that. So a lot of his blowback was more centered on his personality, opposed to uh, Pastor James, who rolled with him, that was a little bit more received. But I want to be clear about this: that black men, whether it's Democrat or conservative, are not always received well. So let me just be clear about that. I don't think if you're not towing the line on the Democrat side, they don't want to hear what black men. We see that now with black men not being
Exactly.
listened to. So I want to put that out there first, that I don't think black men are respected either or, because the Democrat Party uplifts black women and completely ignore black men. So let me first put that out there. But I just want to speak specifically to the individuals you mentioned. Omarosa was never accepted. In fact, when she went to the NABJ that year, they booed her ass out the room. So nobody said Omarosa was black girl power. Omarosa was always looked at as an entertainer that was rolling with Trump, because she was with Trump before Trump, was running for president. Condoleezza Rice, I would agree with you on that. That there was respect for her, the same way there was respect for Colin Powell, because of what they've done, as conservatives and their careers. So Colin Powell is a good example of a black conservative that was always respected, at least for the most part, on the right and left. So I think when we say they're more acceptable, I just don't think people want to hear a voice from black men, period, unless they're towing the line. Just to put that out there. But if you would listen, some black women, some black conservatives will tell you that the road hasn't been easy with them with dealing with majority white men, because white men don't want to hear from women a lot in the conservative party, because it can be very sexist, even in the conscious community. I know nobody want to hear that, but there's a lot of sexism in the conscious community as well. There's some people right here who are listening right now to make everything about gender, everything about women, everything women versus women, women versus men. So the conscious community is not always that accepting of women as well, who are outspoken. So I just think when it comes to gender, and that conversation, there's work in both areas. If you are somebody that is bold and standing on your, on your truth, you know what I mean. I think people like us are gonna have a hard time no matter what side we on.
Especially it's especially if you start talking black politics.
That's
Any,
right.
as long as you do that, it's because didn't that happen to Richard Steele? Didn't that same thing
That's
happen to
right.
him
That's right.
with the Republicans? I think they started, treating
About
him
Michael
differently.
Steele. Michael
Michael
Steele.
Steele,
Yeah,
Michael Steele,
Michael Steele.
Michael Steele. Yes.
Yeah,
Didn't
yeah,
that
because he
happen
was
with him as
accepted. He
well?
was over the he was over the RNC. And again, the majority of people in the Republican Party are white men, so they're not really trying to hear from women. Period. Even white women. You know, Nikki Haley, they'll bump her up now, but they're not going to go the distance. So they're still, y'all do know sexism exists, right? Y'all would agree with that, right? There's such thing as sexism.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Absolutely.
so there's a lot of that in the Republican Party as well. But I'm honest enough to say that yes, uh, the Democrat Party has basically positioned, uh, based upon the numbers of black women uh, having more power, if you will, than black men, and not listening and telling black men to fall in line, and you just don't know what you're talking about. You know what
Like
I mean? So
Simone Sanders, right? She was saying black men need to shut up or something like that.
she's not the only one. Several have. You know, that's just the tone of black men need to get in line and be quiet. You know, so, and even though I advocate for black men all the time, men still come at me all the time. You seen that, Nyhiem? No matter how many ways I rock with black men, no matter how many. As a side note, on my show Tez on 10, I had 4 guest co-hosts. I made sure that they were all men, all alpha men. It was very important to me to show a conversation being moderated, because Gary was my co-host. He wasn't just my guest. He was my co-host. So I made sure that they were all men. So even when I'm trying to make space for men, I still get criticized. Look at all the videos about me that they said the worst thing that could ever happen to black women and the worst thing that ever happened. There's a guy called Thy Man something. What's the name that I checked before? That coon. Forgot his name. Reynard. He writes an article about me every 90 days about how I'm the worst woman ever. You know, so we get it on both sides when you speak in truth. I think they probably did when I did that interview with Ramaswamy. You remember my name because you had to step in. Like, it was men making videos calling me cunts and bitches and all type of women coming for me too. So I don't think it's
Mhm.
always a gender thing. I think it's what you're saying, what's coming out of your mouth. My voice is too strong. I'm too aggressive. I'm too this. I'm too that. So
Pit
women,
bull in the skirt.
yeah, all of that. And a matter of fact, speaking of tracks, I did a whole track called Political Pit Bull 10 years ago. So I think it has more to do with what you're saying. And Daryl Scott is a no holds bar, don't give a damn what you think, from the streets of Cleveland. Will tell you his story. Hey, I done been on heroin, dope, drugs, whatever. I'm with Trump. Oh well. Sure. But but before that, no, but before that, everybody always had a general respect for Colin Powell. You know, always. I'm just to
Yeah,
the point of saying that
I
some men,
would say that
yeah, people
on
always
Colin
respected
Powell.
Powell. Yeah, and people still call Constantine Rice a coon too. Like, she didn't escape it, but they,
Yeah,
but they, but they weren't playing politics. So you got to look at Pastor Darrell Scott was a surrogate, so he was out here fighting. You know, arguing and fighting. We did many shows together. Omarosa was out here arguing and fighting. Constantine Rice, Colin Powell, they were in the administration, so they weren't taking the heat, if that makes sense. They weren't put in positions to have to defend themselves or to be talked about. They had their heads down, was doing a job, if that makes
Yeah,
sense.
it does. That
Uh,
definitely makes sense. Definitely.
Pastor Scott, that's all he did was look for the smoke. Literally. He's one of the best at it.
yeah.
That's
I
all he
follow the
did.
brother on Twitter, man. He be going in. He
Yeah.
definitely be going in.
So he got
Um,
smoke, welcome smoke.
indeed, indeed. All right, so let's. All right. All right. So you want to. All right. You get into the originalist, because I was actually going to the Constitution anyway. Okay. So all right. So then you just come. You and Josh, y'all, give a follow up to what Gary Chambers was saying about the Constitution, and you can, get into the originalist argument, and we'll break that. I'm gonna just throw it to y'all. I got 1,000 notes, but for the sake of time, I'm gonna just throw it to y'all, and we'll go from there. So Oh, let me see. He made several claims about the Constitution that I thought were extremely problematic, because if you are a politician in this country and you do not understand the Constitution, I don't understand your position as a politician. It is that Constitution that gives you the power to run in a representative capacity, whether it's locally, whether it's a senator on a state or federal level, et cetera, et cetera. So I was confused by some of his statements. And so I want to bring some of those up and have Ali go in, and then Josh and then Ibrahim, you could come on the back end with the originalist argument, because I think he misunderstands what originalism is. And I don't want to shoot down everything he said in that regard about originalism, because I kind of understand it in the same way he views conservatism, but we'll flesh that out. So he said the Constitution did not consider us in its inception. We'll get into Justice Curtis and Justice McLean's dissent and Dred Scott. That's just simply not true. He says basically that we the people, and I'm paraphrasing right here, we the people were white men only, meaning we were not included when this Constitution was being drafted. Again, that's simply not the case. And I thought Sonnie hit back with a perfect shot when she said, can you imagine how things would be for us without the Constitution? And he shot back and said that we advanced in spite of the Constitution. And I thought that was completely and utterly asinine. And, I think that this is an area where we kind of lend to the conversation and education across the board, because you have to have in my opinion, a working knowledge of the Constitution and the history, especially as an American freedman, AKA a Black person, AKA an African American in this country, because, well, without the Constitution, you don't get what's called the second founding, which is the Reconstruction Amendments. These amendments were specifically designed for us. The problem came with what's called judicial construction, obiter dictum, where the justices gave opinions as opposed to interpretations of the actual text of the Constitution, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, Ali, what are your thoughts on Chambers' stance on what he said about the Constitution, about it not being a document for us? He made several claims that I don't know. I thought they were problematic.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Now this is a point where I actually
wait, hold on. Your volume is low, or is that me? Can y'all hear him?
Check one. How's it sound?
It sounds good on my end.
Okay, so my volume went low. Why?
Well, let me just stop me if it sounds low to anybody else.
No, go ahead, bro. I guess this is my phone. I just went off speaker for whatever reason.
Oh, okay. So, no, I was going to say that I agree with Sonnie's position on it, that our people advance due to the Constitution. Now, he also made the statement that we had certain folks and certain people who were pushing against the Constitution is what made, where they were able to make certain strides. And that's not the case. What was being done was they were enforcing it. They were forcing the nation to actually stand on the principles embedded in that, right? So you can't say that they were pushing against it. They were using it and making the government or holding the government accountable to living up to those principles. So again, like we were saying, it has a lot to do with understanding the history of the Constitution itself, constitutional law, the things that comprise constitutional law, and where all of that stuff came from, how it came about. And if you could, Nyhiem, because I can't do it right now, if you could pull up the piece from Justice Curtis, because I think we need to reference that at some point, right, where he's talking about the people who were a part of the states who helped to ratify the Constitution, and how that also applied to them. So the fact of the matter is, Constitution is not just the United States Constitution, but you got to look at it from the standpoint of the Declaration of Independence, because Constitution really just doubles down on what was outlined in that declaration. And in the Declaration, it says that all men were born free and equal, and you have these unalienable God-given rights for which government is instituted to protect. Now, the thing about it is, most of us were taught that this was for white men. The problem is, when you look at the debates surrounding all of these things, going into the Declaration, going into the Constitution, what you find out is that there were certain people who wanted to enshrine certain things in them documents. Some people wanted it to say all white people were born free and equal, but that was voted down. That was voted down. When it came to the United States Constitution, some people wanted it to actually say in the so-called fugitive slave clause that slaves would be captured and returned as fugitives from justice. But when you look at the debates and you look at what James Madison had to say about it, and the majority of the other framers, you start to see that they shot that idea down. So when it comes to the so-called fugitive slave clause, which should really be called the fugitive servant clause, you see that the word that they use in there is not slave. They talk about service, people who owe service and labor. Now, the important thing when you mention Garrisonian, and Frederick Douglass, and how Frederick Douglass kind of went against his teacher, Garrison. But that's because he started to read the works of Lysander Spooner, which Lysander Spooner put out a piece called The Unconstitutionality of Slavery. In that piece, he's breaking down, I think it was published in 1840 something, but he's breaking down in that piece how slavery was unconstitutional, not just with the United States Constitution, but going all the way back into the Constitution coming out of England. Constitution of Britain or England was the common laws of England, along with the positive statutory laws that they passed through Parliament. So you look at the case of Somerset versus Stewart. You look at the works of a person like a James Otis, where he published this piece called The Rights of the Colonists Asserted and Proved. In that piece is very important, because in that piece, James Otis is saying that blacks as well as whites were subjects of the sovereign of Britain and were born free on this land. So what we're looking at is a stream of thought that existed for a long time before the United States Constitution even got framed and adopted. This is a stream of thought that existed amongst abolitionists for a very long time. And what it did was it included so-called, black people along with white people as members of the society, as citizens, as members of the society who had rights and privileges that were to be protected. So when it comes down to this idea that these things weren't for black people played a role in every part of it. The adoption of the Constitution. Nyhiem, do you have that piece from Curtis where he's speaking on it?
Let me read from it now. And this is from, remember, in the Dred Scott case, there were two dissenters, Justice Curtis and Justice McLean. And a lot of people, they simply do not know this information. And I said this earlier about, William Lloyd Garrison, which was a mentor to Frederick Douglass, where he taught about the Constitution being a pact with, what did he say? A pact with death and a covenant with hell and all of these different things. He lied. But his idea and ideals as it pertained to the Constitution and how our people should view it has survived Frederick Douglass. And I believe it survives Frederick Douglass because there's not enough emphasis placed upon this term that we've adopted from a hater called freedmanism, right? So I want to read from Justice Curtis's dissent in the Dred Scott the Dred Scott decision. It said, because, wait, just real quick, in that decision, Justice Taney ruled that, and it was an opinion. It wasn't based on anything constitutional, that Dred Scott had no rights which white men were bound to respect. And this lasted for a few years until you get the passage of the Reconstruction Amendments. Ultimately, the 1866 Civil Rights Act is what many constitutional scholars say overturned the Dred Scott decision, because it was just false. It was just a lie. So let's read what Justice Curtis says in his dissenting opinion. He said, it may be proper here to notice some supposed objections to this view of the subject. It has been often asserted that the Constitution was made exclusively by and for the white race. Brother Ali just touched on that. It has already been shown that in 5 of the 13 original states, colored persons then possessed the elective franchise and were among those by whom the Constitution was ordained and established. So when Gary Chambers is saying what he says about us not being a part of this constitutional fold, that's not true. And I'm hoping that those who think along those lines that are listening to this or will listen to this start to shed that. We have to ground ourselves in the Constitution, because yes, we are in fact a part of we the people. So I want to read that last line again, where he says, it has already been shown that in 5 of the 13 original states, colored persons then possessed the elective franchise and were among those by whom the Constitution was ordained and established. If so, it is not true, in point of fact, that the Constitution was made exclusively by the white race. And that it was made exclusively for the white race is, in my opinion, not only an assumption not warranted by anything in the Constitution, but contradicted by its opening declaration, that it was ordained and established by the people of the United States for themselves and their posterity. And as free colored persons were then citizens of at least 5 states. And so in every sense, part of the people of the United States, they were among those for whom and whose posterity, again, the Constitution was ordained and established. How many people have read the dissent of Justice Curtis? It's long, I'm going to tell you now, because he had to shred Chief Justice Taney's obiter dictum, his mere judicial opinion. He had to shred that thing, and he did just that. And I urge you all to pull up Justice Curtis's dissent, and I'm going to read this next part and give it back to Ali. He says, the answer is obvious. The Constitution has left to the states the determinations what persons born within their respective limits shall acquire by birth citizenship of the United States. It has not left to them any power to prescribe any rule for the removal of the disabilities of alienage. This power is exclusively in Congress. It has been further objected that if free persons born within a particular state and made citizens of that state by its constitution and laws are thereby made citizens of the United States, then under the 2nd section of the 4th article of the Constitution, such persons would be entitled to all the privileges and immunities of citizens in the several states. And if so, then colored persons could vote and be eligible not only in federal offices, but offices even in those states whose constitutions and laws disqualify colored persons from voting or being elected to office. I'm hoping people are understanding what Justice Curtis is breaking down here, because what he's saying is even those states that have constitutions that are anti our people, it does not negate the fact that these are citizens and that they can hold offices not only at the federal level, but also in those states where you are drafting up provisions in your constitution to disable their citizenship. This is a powerful piece. And I urge everybody to read Justice Curtis and Justice McLean's dissent in Dred Scott, but especially Justice Curtis. Go ahead, Ali.
Yes. Now that's powerful, right? Now, and I really do. I agree with you. I really do hope people are taking that in and what that all meant. So the point is that our people were a part of the making of the Constitution, even though we were taught that it had nothing to do with us and that it was really about white men. And one of the things that Gary Chambers said was that the Constitution put us in a trick. Basically, I'm just paraphrasing. Basically, the Constitution put us in a trick bag. It wasn't the Constitution that did it. It was racist white men and their construction of the Constitution, their interpretations or misinterpretations or misconstruing of the Constitution that did it. The Constitution is a very fair document. You have to understand that. Even when you consider the 3/5 compromise, which many people misunderstand, that thing said that we're 3/5 of a human being, and never said that. Even with that and the so-called fugitive slave clause, those things actually, like Frederick Douglass said in his Glasgow speech, those things actually push the Constitution towards freedom, not towards slavery. When you look at what was actually happening. So let's take the 3/5 compromise for a second. What was going on at the time that they made that this compromise had to even be made? They were coming out of the Articles of Confederation, looking to adopt the Constitution, and we're having these debates. The problem is the Union was fragile. The fragility of the Union was an issue from the beginning. But even at this point, it was still fragile because you had certain states that were debating the issue of whether or not they wanted to remain in the Union or become separate, sovereign, independent nations of their own. So in order to keep the Union intact, they compromised with the slaveholding states. Now, the 3/5 compromise was one that had to do with representatives in Congress. It had nothing to do with calling Black people 3/5 of a human being. If you look at the text, you're not going to see anything like that. It had everything to do with representation in Congress. What the slaveholding states actually wanted to do was count all of the enslaved population for the purposes of getting more representation in Congress, which would have made their position in Congress more powerful than the northern states, the states that didn't have slaves. So in essence, they actually wanted to count 5/5 of the enslaved population. They wanted the entire population to be counted as citizens for representation. So the argument from the northern states was, wait a minute, if these people are your property, how is it that you're trying to count, number one, how are you trying to count property for representation when only citizens get that, unless you're trying to say they're citizens? That's number one. There's a contradiction there. Number two, if they're your property, what's to stop you from counting your horses and your sheep and your plows and your shovels for representation too? Those things are your property as well. It starts to become a ridiculous argument. So what they wound up doing was they wound up allowing the slaveholding states to count 60% of the enslaved population for representation in order to keep the Union intact, because the whole thing was about keeping the Union intact. So that's what it was. But what they did was they cut down on what it was they were trying to do, which was to count the entire slave population. They cut down on the 5/5 and brought it down to 3/5. That's number one. The fugitive slave clause. If you read James Madison's words when they were debating the adoption of the Constitution, James Madison made the point that James Otis made. He made the point that was made in the Somerset case, that man does not have the right to property in man. This is in the actual debate records. You can read this. This is what James Madison actually said. There's no right to property in man, and we are not going to enshrine in the Constitution that anybody has such a right. This is why you won't find the word slave or slavery in the Constitution. You're not going to find it anywhere in there. And so what they decided on was that the only people who owed service or labor were servants who made contracts with, in terms of indentured servitude and apprentices. So when you look at the fugitive slave clause, and if you look at the debates, you'll see that they decided against putting the word slave or slavery in the so-called fugitive slave clause and only left servant and apprentice, because that's who they decided was the only people who were going to be targeted. A slave was considered property, not a person who owed service or labor, but property. So it's a very technical argument that took place, but you got to know that the argument actually took place in order to understand it from the perspective that Frederick Douglass, Lysander Spooner, and others like that, the way they understood it. That's why they came to the conclusion that they did, that slavery was unconstitutional and that our people were actually protected by Constitution as citizens and members of society, just like any other white person.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with them that a lot of the originalists are on the right. Um, but I mean, how do you operate? That's the reality that we live in, and those people have lifetime appointments. So how do you operate? Um, I mean, again, when you look at things through a Freedmanist lens, what you see is uh, we have our win really in originalism of the original intent of the 13th Amendment. If you look at it, um, Section 2, that's where we get our enforcement power from Congress, where Congress is empowered to enforce enforce that amendment by instituting appropriate legislation. So basically, they have a constitutional duty to eradicate all badges, incidents of slavery. So that's an originalist position. And I would argue. I mean, I don't see how it wouldn't be, because that's how the court ruled, and that's what was going on at the time. That was the point of them putting that legislation in place. So, uh, you know, yes, so, most of the time, originalism is going to be used to come at us, and to originalism. That perspective is used. It appears to be against us, but I mean, when depends on which amendments you're looking at. You're looking at 13th Amendment, 14th Amendment. Originalism can be used to beat back other people that are trying to bastardize and misappropriate that amendment to hook themselves into it, when those particular groups should not be. That's not who's being talked about. For example, there was an article that was written. I'm not sure it was a video put out, but I can't remember what the woman's name was. But she was from Howard University, and she wrote this article. It was on NBC, and she was saying how uh, people on the left need to be pushing to use the 13th Amendment and the 14th Amendment as a means
No,
as a
it
means to
was
get.
just the 13th. Amendment.
Okay, excuse my bad. Then the 14th Amendment to, because you know where I'm going now here, to justify um, being able to,
Abortion.
abortion. Right. But what she was saying was basically, if you take, if you use this 14th Amendment and you say, you anchor black. Actually, no, she said the 13th and 14th, because what she was saying was, if you say a black woman not having a choice over her own body is a badge and incidence of slavery, then you go and you anchor that in the 14th Amendment. Once you get the law passed, you say, well, okay, well, now we can institute those benefits to all groups, because you got to have equal rights and equal protection under the law. So, but that's not, so originalism will protect us from other people being able to exploit, something that was put in place to solidify and secure rights and protections for our people, especially those that actually do have a stem to the system as a relic, badge, incident of slavery. Uh, and in our case today, that we see that with the Supreme Court, it will be other groups that will be trying to use the 13th Amendment by claiming that some gripe that they have, it goes back to the slave system, when in fact, we need to have that cornered off for our reparations. As far as the badges and incidents of slavery, the wealth gap is included in that. I don't want to get into the full list that we identify on that list, but the point being that there are cases where originalism acts in our favor and not to our detriment.
No, definitely. So, we're gonna get to the next part. I want to open it up as well, and get some people up on the stage. This is a good conversation, to be able to critically analyze both sides of a debate, touch on the things that you. I don't even want to say agree with or disagree with, but just break things down and put them into a proper factual or historical context. And that's what we are attempting to do here with this discussion, right? We build it as a debate among ourselves, because that's what it was when we was going through it. But I've just scaled back a little bit for the sake of time, because the conversations, they happen like this, and sometimes we could get to going. Because I got a bunch of stuff that I that I want to talk about, but I'm probably not going to be able to get to. So let me see. The next topic of discussion is, I don't know, Ibrahim, you want to do the messaging, or where my man said you got booming economies in these democratic strongholds? Which
Mm.
The Color of Wealth report. Well, look. Let me jump in real quick. Let me jump in because I think I got him verbatim when he says 7 of the top 10 booming economies are led by Democrat governors. Now, remember, his answers are in response to conservatism and in response to republicanism. So this is why, I'm thinking about the premise of the debate and the questions that are being asked. And, you just brought up, you really deconstructed what he said. He said the most explosive growth is in liberal leaning states. Well, it's not growing for us. We know that for a fact. But Tezlyn, she said, well, let me ask you for an example. Give us an example of these states that you're talking about. And he said Washington, Maryland, and Colorado. So let's stick to homelessness. Let us stick to homelessness real quick, because Ibrahim brought up homelessness, and I think that we should look at that as a metric for if you're able to, if you're doing good, if things are booming for you, then that means your homeless rate shouldn't be high, and that you're setting yourself up to finally, right? We have to always start from scratch, pass down generational wealth through the home and the property that you acquired that the home sits on. So in Washington State, our people, the American freedmen, make up 13% of the general population, but 40% of the homeless. He brought up Colorado. If you just deal with Denver, where you're going to have the highest concentration of our people in those surrounding areas, we make up 23.5% of the population, but we are, we make up 5.3. Let me start that over. We make up 5.3% of that population, but we are 23.5% of the homeless. He said Maryland. What are the homeless numbers there? It says while Black individuals make up just 29% of the state's population, 59% of the state's homeless population are Black. So this is what I'm saying. In these places that when Tezlyn pushed him on, which areas are you speaking about where we're witnessing this economic boom? And we have to assume he means we're benefiting from it. Every place that he named has the highest rate of homelessness. And if you look at the New York Times report that they did last year, that thing was very telling, because one of the things that it broke down, it was a report that they did on liberal cities, and it showed that in 18 states in the United States, in this country, right, where the Democrats run these states, where there's no Republicans in these states that can stop them. Oh, the Democrats get to decide what policy looks like in those 18 states. And it's just as simple as that. And they focus on California. They focus on California, and they did an excellent job in doing so. Because if this is supposed to be like this bastion of liberalism and an economic boom that we're somehow benefiting from, well, the state legislature, the executive branch, to damn near every big city in that state is under Democratic control. It's under Democratic control. Their housing policy is so bad that it is the reason why, well, not the reason, it's one of the reasons, let me say, one of the reasons why we see the high rates of homelessness in the state of California. So every time they want to build up a high density housing units, the citizens in every single county say no. They like low density neighborhoods where there's a house here and then 1,000 feet that way or 1,000 yards that way, there's another house, then another 1,000 yards. They rejected elderly homes for the elderly in many of these communities. So not only are we dealing with high rates of homelessness in states like California, in states like New York, et cetera, the people that comprise of the homeowners are not even us. Ibrahim brought up the Color of Wealth report that showed that the American Freedmen, I believe that's median net worth, or is that household worth, I'm not sure, is only $100 in the city of Los Angeles. It's $100,000 for Nigerians. So if you see Black people, it won't be American freedmen. 9 times out of 10 living in those expensive homes. The rest of the people comprise of who? Hispanics largely, and Hindus who are getting the best tech jobs, et cetera, et cetera. The 2 largest discrimination cases in the state of California is not between Black people and white people, meaning Black people are suing white people because of discrimination. It's Black people suing Hispanic people. So I don't understand what Gary Chambers is speaking about. And I focused in on his responses because it's the typical playbook of we're just going to say anything to Black people. And they're supposed to accept it. And if they don't accept it, you get some neck rolling chick that gets on CNN and says, Black people, we don't think. We're not using logic. We're using feelings and we're using emotion. No, we're using our brains over here. And that's what this space is for. This space is to show that we as a voting bloc that do not care about political party are using our brains, and we are becoming very, very influential. And I'm going to end by saying this, because I can't remember the exact question that Tez asked. I took this note wrong, but Sonnie's response, no, matter of fact, I think the question was towards the end. I think she asked the question about how will liberalism help us and how will conservatism help us. And one of the things that Sonnie said that resonated with me was something that we repeat often on this side of things, not just with BTP, United Sons and Daughters of Freedmen, but the reparations movement in general. And she said, it's not about Democrats or Republicans, but if the policies are uplifting Black people. See, Gary Chambers was talking about this all-inclusive thing, this DEI thing. He brought up brown people and indigenous people, et cetera, and these people are doing great. The indigenous people received reparations from this country, a lot of them. They have a Bureau of Indian Affairs that get a slice of the federal budget cut, take care of themselves and their reservations, et cetera, et cetera. We are not getting anything. We're told, stop being stupid, right, Snoop? This is what Snoop Dogg said. You stupid if you go and vote for Trump. So how if it wasn't Trump? How if it was somebody else? Pick any Democrat. I mean, excuse me, Republican. Would Snoop come out and make the same message? Of course he would, because these people are a part of a captured electorate and they are using celebrities to manipulate and brainwash our people into believing a lot of the stuff that I think Gary Chambers is a good dude. I really do. I think he's misinformed, and he says he's not a Democrat, but he sure is towing the Democratic Party line. And I could give the same breakdown that Ibrahim gave earlier about Sonnie using a lot of the Republican talking points, although she says that she's not a Republican. So I'm ready to open it up for anybody that wants to come up. Yeah, go ahead, bro.
Well, yeah, that's where I have a problem with him at. Just like the problem with the rest of the Democratic Party, they're representing the wrong interests, you know. And if you're saying that you stand on blackness and you was born black and my parents was black and I'm standing on blackness, I'm black first. If you're saying that, which is what he said in the interview, then you should really be about that. But these folks cannot have a conversation about their people without talking about brown people, without talking about Native Americans, without talking about LGBT, none of that. They just cannot do it. They can't do it. And to me, that's just very problematic. And you know, that's one of the things where I have a real issue with him and the Democrats, like so many of us at this stage of the game.
Black, white, look, black, white, LGBTQ. When did LGBTQ become a race or an ethnic group in the United States of America? Because he said that. Like they can't, it's like they can't say us without saying somebody else, and they have to retrain their minds to do that. And I think that's why what we're doing is so important. My bad, go ahead, Breen.
nobody. And Michigan's General Assembly is majority Democrat. I just wanted to throw that because you mentioned the governor and you mentioned the mayors, but the General Assembly is majority Democrat too.
Man, we cooked in here today, and I started a little scared because I kind of didn't know how I wanted to attack my analysis, and I knew I had 1,000 notes, and I wanted to make sure that everybody got their time in, and so I decided to let the bros basically go in after a while because we need to have these conversations. We need to look at uh, these debates. A shout out again to our sister Tezlyn, and a shout out to Sister Sonnie. Like I said, I have a bias, not because I rock with Sister Sonnie. We have our debates, or we've had our debates. I'll say that, but because
I have a bias too.
you know,
I feel like
and,
Sonny
and
is
I,
my sister. You know what I'm saying?
no doubt, no doubt. But I know her arguments, right? So that's my bias going into the thing. It's like I know how she fights. Like if they was to have a part two, I'm telling y'all, from my perspective, this is my perspective from watching Sister Sonnie. Man, she gonna put that flamethrower on him. I'm telling you, she Sonnie the type that adjusts to the debate as it
Yeah,
goes
but
along. And if she
here's my
get you again on the second round, you better be able to hang with
le- le-
her. No, hey, I'm trying to lead into it, man. I'm trying to lead into it so y'all can hear who I think won the debate. I think Sonnie won the debate. I thought she answered all of the questions clearly. I thought that she stood on the premise of the debate. I thought Gary Chambers I thought he danced around, right? And he was trying to move, even with the question about when Tezlyn was like, okay, yeah, but name some of these liberal states that, with these booming economies you talk about. And it just seemed like he freestyled Colorado, Washington, and Maryland. I'm like, we went from kind of like the West Coast all the way over to the East Coast. I was like, nah, you just came off the top. He was trying to go to another point, and then Tezlyn brought him back to that point. Yeah, so I thought Sonnie won the debate. That's my thoughts on it. So let's go around the room, and then we're gonna go to Ali, Josh, Ibrahim, who y'all thought won the debate. Then we'll go get some perspective from our Freedman fan, brother Prime, and our sister Roz. Was good. Yeah, go ahead, Ibrahim. Yeah, like that one counter when he was talking about these booming liberal economies, but then he started talking about the back south strategy, and she said, "Well, why would you want to leave these liberal cities to go keep
Or
with that?"
or
I was like, "The debate is over."
or the other counter when he was saying that we didn't that we advanced in spite of the Constitution, and she was like, "Well, if it wasn't for the Constitution, you would have had no civil rights or civil rights movement," because we all know that civil
Smoked them,
rights laws come out of the Reconstruction Amendment.
smoked
But
them.
she killed them on that.
yeah.
Well, so you saying this is like a pyrrhic victory where somebody won. I disagree with you, but I feel what you're saying. I hear you. I hear you. I hear you. But
Josh,
remember what Tez said earlier that a lot of it was edited. It was, go ahead, John.
I mean, that's why I got to jump in before Ibrahim, because earlier when we talked, we was both saying all of this, and then but he pretty much, we pretty much share the same position. I sounded like when I was trying to understand, because maybe y'all listening to Sonny's spaces, and I never got around to like hearing the space where she broke down or explain her positions like that. So I was really coming in from a new person that never really knew what Sonny was about. And I left that debate and I still didn't know what Sonny was about. I didn't know what she was for. It was kind of vague. And all her explanations, they just didn't leave me with a clear picture of what her positions or ideology or anything like that was about. And when that's the default, then my brain goes to, okay, it's more like Ibrahim said, uh, you want to complain on the blue side, but then you have nothing to offer. You don't offer, okay. Don't vote for the Democrats. What have you gotten in your cities and all this? They toe up. Look at Baltimore. Look at. Okay, well, what are your solutions? What are you proposing? What are you talking about that you're going to do different? And and that's my pushback. We recently were talking about what should we do this election cycle and next election cycle, and we should do a protest vote. And I'm like, okay, well, look, I mean, protest vote is like you could still giving away your vote for free. You're just doing it giving it to somebody else. But what are they going to do to deserve that vote? So I know I kind of veered off into another point, but since we were talking about the Democrats and Republicans on their side, and on the side of how are you going to get something for what you're offering. I didn't leave that watching that debate, hearing what Sonny was for. I just she took the position, I'm going to fight back against everything that Gary was talking about. And I would have liked her to bring up some actual real topics that affect us, that
well,
that cause us to have dissension. Like it's, number one being the immigration piece. Go ahead.
I think Josh, Sonny's position is spelled out in the principles of Black conservatism, and I mean, it's telling you what she's about right there. You know what I mean? Like, one of the main things is you know, do for self, right, and being responsible as individuals, right? Individuals, so right, absolutely,
Yeah, but y'all are saying
absolutely.
it. Y'all are summarizing. Like because we understand which, but most
No,
people
she said that.
when they listen to that, they're
She
not gonna
said
know
that,
what she's
Josh.
talking about.
She
Huh?
said that, Josh. She said
What?
that.
No, I know she said that. I'm saying y'all are summarizing what she said. Y'all are breaking it down into rugged individualism. Okay, when you say rugged individualism and do for selfism, we know what that means. But that's not what she said. She says, I'm gonna, individual and the family. Like she didn't break it down to where
I
you can
feel you on
understand
that.
how,
I feel you
yeah,
on that.
what
I
that
feel you on
position
that.
is. Yeah.
All right, so Ali, who you thought won, Sonny or Gary?
Oh yeah, I didn't even
Well,
tell y'all real quick. I give it to Gary in case you didn't tell.
Well, you didn't tell us, but I think we figured that out.
I
Ali.
think that, like I said earlier, man, I don't know that anybody won. I just look at it as they were given two different perspectives, about what their position is on their parties, basically, and then a little bit on who's responsible for for the problems of the black community. They went into a little bit of that, but I mean, like, my thing is Republicans and Democrats are responsible because they're both in positions of power and they both practice benign neglect when it comes to us. So it does, there is no real winner. It's just like, in my perspective, there's no real winner. It's just they're talking about the way they see things based on their party affiliations.
I don't know. It sounded like they got into a debate to me, but okay. So we got two for Gary, one for Sonny, and a one. Let me use a boxing analogy. No contest.
I'll say this
I
one
see your
thing.
text,
Who
Ibrahim.
didn't win?
What you say,
Who
Josh?
didn't win? Who didn't win was Freedman in that debate. I say just because it seemed like there was more of a deferment to ideology of based on party, affiliation, or not necessarily party affiliation, but party school of thought or ideology, as opposed to, all right, I'm forget that. What is it that my people need first, and that's where I'm going. And I understand from the standpoint of Gary, who's trying to win a statewide election for a national seat, so he has to speak the language that can appeal to a broader base of people because you can't be popularly elected as a senator in your state by American Freedmen because we haven't gotten the numbers back up there yet. And you understand that party is, the Democrat Party is a party where we were talking about this earlier. The reason why Republicans can say certain things and they can say it directly to white people and they can because their base is pretty much white people, white supremacy, and anybody else who's cool with that and wants to get a position, a leg up in that or whatever, to leverage that. And then the Democrats, they can't really, they got to be careful what they say because they don't want to piss any one particular group off. And you piss one particular group off, so that's why a lot of times it appears they don't stand for nothing. They stand for everybody and nobody, everything and nothing, and it's for that reason. And so that's why it can be frustrating as hell to deal with Democrats because you're like, well, you're not speaking nothing specifically for me. You're not speaking nothing specifically, and then we see in the scenario where everybody gets something, it's always American Freedmen get the smallest amount or no or just don't get anything. And
Yeah, I
yeah, that's it.
concur. All right, cool. I concur, Josh. I absolutely concur with you on that. Okay, so we're gonna go with our brother Prom. What's going on, Prom? Did you watch the debate? I know you did. Give us your thoughts on give us a little analysis and who you thought won that debate.
Peace, peace, peace. Nyhiem, salute. Ali, Josh, Ibrahim, the BTP family, everybody on the stage, and the Freedman Conscious family in the space. I did not see that debate. I did not see it, but going off of what y'all saying, it sounds like Gary Chambers was fooled. Sounds like he was fooled. I will have to check the debate myself because I want to make my own decision. Um, I like the perspective from Ibrahim and Josh. It was actually opposite of what I expected because we all engage with Sonny all the time in her spaces. So it was interesting to see or for y'all to hear y'all say that y'all think that Gary Chambers won. I rock with Sonny. I enjoy being in her spaces and having a dialogue and conversations with her. But I can't really say who won or who didn't win. And then Ali says it wasn't really a debate and nobody won. So I really got to look into it myself. But I wanted to ask some questions. Is Gary Chambers an American freedman? And if he is, would y'all consider him freedman conscious?
Yeah, he's a freeman,
He's a freeman.
and I'm not saying that they didn't debate. I'm just saying that I don't necessarily think anybody I don't particularly think anybody quote unquote won. That's all. That's all. But go ahead, Nyhiem. Go ahead.
No, no. Yeah, he's a freeman. He's a freeman.
Is he freedman conscious? Would y'all say?
I would.
Mm.
What is that? PS pinchback, I believe that is something like that.
Oh,
He need to sharpen up on that constitution, though, bro.
okay. Yo, I'm saying that's that's the bullshit. It's already like skewering my position before I even watch the debate or the discussion, whatever it's called. Josh, what do you think? Would you consider him Freeman conscious or?
Um, I mean, you hear him. I would like to hear more from what his positions are. I know what his position is on immigration, so when I say he's freedom conscious, I'm talking about from the standpoint of he's aware that we need to have strategy moving back to the South to get political power so we can properly elect. But I would say from his position on other things as far as immigration, no, that's problematic, man. That position is problematic because I don't
Oh,
like
I
you
got a
can't do
question.
one, you can't do both, bro. You can't say you
Right,
need to have a larger majority of black folks in the South,
right.
but at the same time you're trying to bring in more people from out of the country, that especially from Latin America, which is gonna mess up those numbers. So go ahead.
And you can't
It,
say
it,
and you can't, but you can't say you want more immigration either. You can't. No, that's a no go. Mm, mm.
Cookie cutter Democrat.
Reparations.
Facts.
That's not in there, or not even any specific policy for American freedmen at all. So I would probably have to say no, he's not freedman conscious. Now, I have spoken with Sonnie, and she is of the conservative class. I'll say. I think I would call her like a purist conservative and engaging with her. I think she does have the freedman consciousness, and there's room for her to grow. You know what I mean? Because they do come from that individualist perspective in comparison to us, where we're trying to talk about the collective. Now, us individually, we use our individual skills or our reparationist skills to elevate the collective. You see what I'm saying? But from my experience, a lot of the freedmen conservatives, they're usually looking at it from a rugged individualistic perspective, bootstrapper in an individual position. You know,
And
but
what
I
they're
do
usually
love the
saying
fact
is,
that
we
I
don't
love
want the
the fact that
government. Go
Sonnie
ahead.
is always rooted in the Constitution, and I respect that, and I think that's a great quality to have. You know what I mean? Her understanding of that, and yeah, that's what we need to stand on as well. And I think I did a great job at breaking that down. Well, I would say that's an element that I think where I say she could have some room to grow, but that's her personal position. Like, she's been in that conservative atmosphere for a while, I'm guessing. But me personally, I think if she did run for some type of political campaign or just something, I think that she could be someone we can work with and build with if she was in a position of power or something else. You know what I mean? I think she's more in alignment with us than someone like Gary Chambers, where it seems like he's more on the Democratic agenda. You know what I mean? But
Yes,
I
no
would
doubt about
answer
that.
your question. I would say, yeah, okay, mm, yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, see, that's the thing though, because it's all nuance. Because from my understanding, and y'all can correct me, y'all engaged with Sonny more than me. She is pro reparations. Am I wrong?
She's I'll say she's not against reparations. That's a
Okay.
better way to that's a
uh,
better way to put it.
so see,
She's
yeah,
not
that's the
against it
thing
at
then.
all.
Well, then that's the thing. Then I need to find out more about Sonny. Then you see what I'm saying?
She's
Because
not Sonny is not against reparations, and if she will bring up, like, if they're talking about giving money to Ukraine or Israel, and people are saying that they support that, Sonny will blurt out in the New York second, yeah, but y'all don't want to pay reparations.
mm,
So you know
okay,
what I'm saying? But she'll
okay,
also let you know reparations is not something that I'm fighting for, or
okay,
in the same breath. You know what I'm saying?
got you,
So
got you, got you. Okay, that's
definitely. So
absolutely.
let's go to our sister Roz, and then I have a question that I want to ask everybody that's on the stage. It's a very interesting question. Prime kind of, I had the question before he even spoke, but when he started speaking, I'm like, oh, that goes right into my question. But let's go to our sister Roz. Sister Roz, what do you think about the debate? What do you think about the conversation that we just had? And what's your analysis? And who you think won?
Okay, I didn't see the whole thing, but I did see a part of it. But this is what I kind of pulled out from immediately when I was hearing Gary Chambers talk. He sounds like something that would really blossom in the Democratic Party. And I'm saying that because, like, I think brother Ibrahim was saying, hey Ibrahim, hi family. I'm sorry, y'all. I got a lot going on. What's up, Nyhiem, Ali, Ibrahim, Josh? I just wanted to say shout out to y'all for having this. But it seems to me from hearing him talk, even if he was wrong, he was convicted and committed to what he was saying. You understand what I'm saying? And that's one of the things that people that don't do the fact checking or don't know what they're talking about. Because he's talking about Maryland being, I mean, and yeah, there are certain counties in Maryland that are doing quite well on paper, but at the same time, you're talking about an area that is buttressed by the federal government. I mean, most people that are doing quite well are working for the federal or the state or some kind of government that's basically and have been doing so for generations, right? So you can't pull Maryland out and say Maryland, because then you have like Baltimore, Baltimore City, Baltimore County. When you say Prince George's County or Charles County, yes, they are doing pretty well on paper. But at the same time, a lot of people are gentrified and leaving the great city of Washington, D.C. to move into the county, the surrounding counties. And that's taking a toll also because they don't have the money and they can't afford to live in DC. But I'm saying from listening to Gary Chambers talk, he just was so committed to what he was saying, even when he was wrong. And people tend, like, they tend to flock to that. And instead, and it's like, okay, for me too, I got to understand the purpose of a debate. Are they debating to educate, or are they debating to win? And that's a whole thing. It's like, are you trying to educate the people that are maybe undecided, unhappy? And another thing I didn't, why didn't they talk about something like, to me, like about firearms? Don't talk about gun control, because what the hell does gun control mean? It doesn't mean anything, really. It means whatever the hell you want it to mean. But what does gun control mean? And why didn't they talk about the one of the greatest things that's affecting our inner cities, or our sanctuary cities, I should say, is immigration? Why wasn't that brought up as a topic? And that's something that he believes in. And I mean, she could have just warned him out on the data that points out how immigration is detrimental, highly detrimental, and historically has been for our freedmen community. So I think, I mean, I'm not sure about the whole thing, but I mean, and I didn't get a chance to listen to it all, but he would be able to score a lot of points with people, because if you don't have the information to break down everything that was said, and I mean, I that he was saying that when I listened to it. And I wanted to shout out Brother Ibrahim too, because he did mention our former mayor for life, Marion Barry. Got to get at, brother, his props, because that's one of the people that taught me. And yeah, he was that guy. He ate up all the smoke. He ate up all the smoke for our people, and he was a writer for our people. We do not see that kind of leadership in politics, and that's what we need. We need more Marion Barrys. We need more Maynard Jacksons to be able to carry that mantle. And that's all I wanted to say. If y'all got any other questions, you can. But thanks for letting me
Let's
know.
stay with you. Let's stay with you. But it's hard to ask you the question because you didn't listen to the whole debate. But I'm still going to ask the question: if there was a race, a local, let's just say there's a local election going on, and you have Sonnie Johnson on one side, and I'm coming to you next, Prom, and Gary Chambers on the other side, who would you vote for?
Wow, I didn't hear enough of her, and I don't really know enough about her policies and what she's saying in order to support that, because I don't know about her. So that's not kind of a question I could even answer. But for me, I just see a lot of smoke coming from him, where I knew it was, BS, but I knew it was. But I'm saying, I know how our people, I've been alive long enough, I know how our people eat up a lot of smoke and mirrors. And I think he would do well in a democratic environment. But I don't want to, go against anything that she's saying, because I don't know enough about her policies. And I do agree with Ibrahim. I do agree with like how I want to see how anybody conservative, you're saying conservative. So, I mean, I'm a business owner, right? So how do businesses even grow, or nurture and thrive, unless you have the capital, influx of capital into your business to constantly make that business successful? How does small government fund something like reparations? How does small government be able to, because that's a huge project. You're talking about massive project on a national scale. So
I would love to hear somebody who is a conservative that does support reparations. They can tell me how they figured that this is going to happen, and I would like to view that plan. I'm not saying I mean, it just doesn't make sense. It's kind of like you're doing a massive plan that's from Maine to Hawaii or whatever, all the way from Alaska to Florida, and you're doing it with scale down government. It just doesn't make sense. So that's what I do know. And that's it. I'm sorry. I can't really answer that question because I really didn't hear enough of her in order to be fair in my but I wouldn't vote for either one personally right now because I don't know enough about either one.
Indeed, indeed. All right. I'm gonna go to Prime with the question, but then I'm gonna go to Kelly to get her perspective and breakdown, and then I'm gonna continue with the question with Ibrahim, Josh, and Ali. Go ahead, brother Prime.
Well, going off of what I know from them so far, I will go with Sonny. First off, um, I think that she would be more agreeable to reparations and anti-illegal immigrant invaders in comparison to a Gary Chambers, which are like the top priorities for us as the American Freedmen conscious family. And I will say that from what I've seen from Sunny, she has her own personal convictions. It seems like Gary Chambers is he's speaking in full conviction of the Democratic Party agenda, so he would be no different than
Yep.
a Cory Bush.
I
We've
was just
been
about to say
done that
Corey Bush.
already. And when it comes to Sunny, she has her own internal convictions, and I hear them every time I go in her spaces. She stands firm and tall on her position, and I think that we, as the American Freedmen, or even me individually, I can at least talk to her and come to an agreement with her on why reparations could be done. And I think we already would agree on the illegal alien invasion. We're both rooted in the Constitution, and it's just so many more things that I think that she and I have a meeting of the minds of in comparison to Gary Chambers. Now, is it possible he could agree with us in that? Yeah, it's possible, but going off of what I've been hearing thus far, and again, I have to listen to that myself, but going off of what I've been hearing thus far, I think he may be too far gone. But is it possible for him to be saved by the Freedman conscious family? Of course. We are the best, so anything is possible. But just taking it off of today, November 9th, 2023, I'm rocking with Sunny. I'm rocking with Sunny, and it's because of all of those things. She definitely has a strong conviction of her own internal politics and just her own principles. As far as the small government was concerned, I think that they're concerned about the small government is because they're not in charge of the government. Like, let's keep it real. The government it involves people. So if we're a part of that small government, big government, we will be in control of our own politics, reparations, policies, and everything else, all of the above. So I think I get what she means by limited government. At the same time, I would need to have more nuanced conversations with Sonny about that and ask some more questions to really get a full throttle of what her position is.
She and I have had our debates on on small
Okay.
government.
Yeah.
But I feel you on that. So go ahead, Sister Kelly. Did you watch the debate? And if you did, like, what's your take? And I guess, matter of fact, and you could answer the question as well. Who would you vote for between Sonny and Gary?
Okay, yeah, I hope everybody can hear me. Yeah, I did watch the whole thing. I did have some time yesterday, sitting in the dressing room, so that's what I did. I listened to them. But I would say overall, just to get to the point, I would probably over um Gary, I probably would vote for Sonnie. And I say that because I have heard her speak before. I have been in her spaces before. I've heard her podcast before. And I believe that she came from a more, not even a more, she just was very, she's always very passionate if anybody listens to her. So that goes without saying. She's passionate about what she's talking about. But to me, I thought she was more factual and she was very honest about what was going on. And I think the problem with that debate for me was that they were speaking from two different points. Sonnie was speaking as strictly a Black conservative, and the other dude was speaking as a Democrat. So you have somebody who's got their values versus somebody who's identifying with a party. So I don't think that they were equally yoked to just say, let's just have a debate. I think that there should have been some actual more, I guess, designated questions, because I think a lot of people get it confused that if you're conservative, that automatically means you're a Republican, or if you are a liberal, that automatically means that you're a Democrat. And it does not mean that. So I think that's where the answers that Sonnie was responding to versus the way that Gary Chambers was responding weren't quite matching up for me. So I understood both sides of it, but overall, I know kind of where Sonnie stands as far as redress for our people. And I think as you can tell the way that she talks, that there are things that I'm saying, not just within the debate, but I'm saying overall from when I've heard her, in the Twitter spaces or X space travels, she's evolving. You can tell that she's on a journey, and she goes where the facts actually lead her. So overall, I probably would end up voting for her. I think that the Gary Chambers guy, he spoke a good game when Tezlyn did the cutaway of the edit of him going off on one of the city council members. That was literally, I think she was shopping on her laptop while critical information and public comment and hearings were going on in his locale. I think he's in Louisiana. I can't remember where he is. But okay. Yeah. So they were showing that, and that was good. And I think that that's what initially put him on the map. But then when you peel back the layers and listen to him now, from that point to now, he is saying the same things as if it were to be a Jasmine Crockett or whomever is standing up there. It's like they've gotten their talking points, they've gotten their orders, and so they're out here telling everyone else. And so I think what the overall thing that I got from Gary was that we aren't, and I think Tezlyn was trying to flesh that out from him as well, that the things going on with the Democratic Party is that they're not giving the Black people or giving our people, freedmen people, really is what they're talking about, enough information to make it look like there's either something that they have done for us or are doing for us or are going to do for us, or just come out and say what you're just not doing. And I think that's what Tezlyn was trying to get him to do, but he was still trying to dance around and trying to make everything look great on the Democratic side, if that makes any sense. I'll take a breath. Thank you.
Hey, that's what I saw. Me and Ibrahim was having a debate last night. I was like, I don't know what you saw, but you pretty much summed up my debate with Ibrahim last night, because that's what I saw. I thought she was concise. I thought she was honest. Yeah, what people dredge up the image of white men when you bring up conservative. That's a fact. And then she gave an explanation as to why, and I just want to say I've learned a lot from Sister Sonnie, man. And you think about some of the powerful sisters that we have in our space, right? Two of them being on our stage right now, Sister Kelly and Sister Roz. And then you think about powerful sisters that's entrenched in the places that we're trying to get to politically, like Sister Sonnie, like our Sister Tezlyn Figaro. Again, shout out to our Sister Tezlyn Figaro for making that debate happen, which caused this great discussion. And, Coach Felicia, and some of the Black conservatives that I rock with, Sister Aja. And this is just me giving a nod to the sisters. There's several of the brothers that's in her space that I rock with. Hell, there's a couple white conservatives that I listen to in her space. I'm like, all right, they get it. You know, they got their conservative thing going on, but it's no different than what the black conservatives in their space, in their particular space, said. So I definitely understand it. All right, Ibrahim, about to put that pressure on you, bro. Who you voting for? Gary Chambers or Sister Sonnie Johnson?
He does. He does.
Okay, cool, brother Ali. Wait, before you go, Ali, hold on. I want to give a shout out to my Boston fam. I'm not going to mention, but they just, I mean, we racking up what they call us, the Freedmen's with an S. The Freedmen's is racking up W's over here. Everybody else just talking in Twitter spaces. The people that's opposing this grassroots movement. You know, all right. So matter of fact, we're gonna go to Josh first, and then we're gonna go to Ali. So Josh, just shout out to Sister Antonia, Brother Jonathan, and our New England Freedmen. They putting in work in Massachusetts, Connecticut. They killing them right now. Y'all better know. We'll make the announcement soon. I'll talk to them first. Because I don't be
Only two
knowing what
freedmen?
they want.
Only
Huh?
two freedmen's doing that? Wow.
It's a little crew, but you could say it's only two. It's a handful of them, and they really moving things out there. They have been so inspirational. I mean, at the end of the day, it's all about legislation, and they doing a damn thing. So go ahead, brother Josh, and then what happened to Ali? Go ahead, Josh. So who would you vote for?
Well, sometimes you can watch a debate and be like, that person won. That person won the debate. That don't mean that's who I was going to vote for. They won the debate because they just might have had a better delivery, or they might have made their position more clear, or you feel like that they might influence more people towards their position or something like that compared to the other person. But from the things that he shared and his, I'm not going based off of having any background information or knowledge about them or what their positions are. I'm just going straight from the debate from what I saw yesterday. And I would end up voting the same, just because some of the things that he said, that positions that he holds, when I hear freedmen that come from that are in a majority Black area, and then you're talking about people of color and Black and brown, and you evoke LGBT like those people aren't Black also. Then you tell me what your agenda is, and you tell me kind of what you're not going to prioritize. And usually when I hear that, it doesn't represent any movement in that hierarchy that currently exists in America. It just means the freedmen at the bottom that maintain. Everybody else get to move forward, and they get the disproportionate steps forward, and the freedmen get left at the bottom. We don't get any, because we need specific policy to address our issue. Like, we need policy put in place to undo the damages. That means it can't be something that's spread around to everybody. So if you're not speaking to specificity, at least I give that to Sonnie. At least she said Black, and they ain't have to include brown, green, white, purple. She just said Black, and that's not even specific enough. But at least it's a little bit more exclusive than Ann Brown. You don't need to call Ann Brown every time you need to get something done. Ann Brown, she need to buy her own dinner. She need to
Ann
fix her
Brown
own
doing
table.
good, bro.
Ann
Ann
Brown
Brown
was
already
straight.
doing good.
Yeah, shoot. Yeah, we don't need to be the sugar daddy for Ann Brown. We ain't got no sugar, So yeah, I will vote for Sonnie. I will vote for Sonnie because at least from what I'm hearing, isn't some of that stuff that Gary was saying is be a non-starter, and I wouldn't trust that he would do enough with specifically for us. I wouldn't trust that he had us at the number as a number one priority. And I know if it depends on what office we're talking about too. We're talking about. And let me say this: I don't know if it's fair either. I don't know if it's fair because most of the time we're judging off of from, let's say in this scenario, we're judging off of him running for a national office, so he has to put out messaging that can appeal to the people that he needs, so he can feel like he can win his election. Whereas Sonnie is not really running for office, so she doesn't really have her. If she actually had to run for a seat, then maybe we get a clearer picture of what her messaging is officially, right? It's one thing when you're talking and it's another thing when you're actually having to spend funds and manage a campaign and raise funds and solicit voters, right? So you might not put Black on everything. You might not put certain. You might signal a different way, So and I want to say that to say maybe if there was a majority freedman in Louisiana, Gary wouldn't be saying what he's saying. I don't know how strong his convictions are compared to what his platform is. A lot of politicians are politicians. They're putting out a platform because they're trying to win, and people are putting the money into them, so they feel like they need to, you know, those interests are going to have influence into what their official position is. I'm not sure if his position represents 100% his convictions. And so, but at the end of the day, all we can judge is what you put out there and what we know. So from that, I would have to go with Sonnie.
Indeed. So my vote, obviously, is obvious. It's going to be Sonnie. Uh, Everything that was basically listed or enumerated by everybody else that was problematic, I share the same sentiment. I would definitely vote for Sonnie Johnson over Gary Chambers. I'm gonna go to Prime and then Kelly, and then I'm gonna shut the space down, fam. I've been working. I'm tired. I do push-ups and shadow box all day at work, and I'm hungry. I haven't eaten yet. So go ahead, Prime, and then we gonna go to Kelly and shut it down.
So yeah, I mean, I think the people have spoken. We have voted in favor of Sonny, but just off GP, I would have been voting for Sonny regardless. Like he has like y'all was saying, he was dancing. I hate when we ask questions and people start dancing. Um, they have a policy prescription that's again that's anti-American Freedmen, and then he said the disrespectful shit of immigrants founded the nation as he is an American freedman. Like, come on, man. Like, come on. Like, I'ma still watch this debate and discussion, but that right there, it makes me like make you. It tells me you lost. You lost. You lost. You lost the heart of the American freedmen people. I would already automatically put you in the L category. But I'm gonna still, just in the spirit of objectivity, I'm gonna still watch this debate and see what it was. But yeah, man, like, come on, man, you can't go around saying immigrants built this nation, and then in respect to what Josh was saying, he still has a an opportunity to speak to his own people as American freedmen, and though because they are also a part of his constituents. So why not put something in there that's specific to them, even if you are um dedicated to a more larger population as the U.S. senator? You see what I'm saying? To me, it's not different, or it's not mutually exclusive. Louisiana is a highly populated American freedmen population, so why not speak to them along with the other non-American freedmen population in that state? I do need to know more, but from what I heard, especially by Ibrahim reading his website, he doesn't even have reparations on there as a U.S. senator. Like, it's a dub for me, but I'm gonna still listen and see what's up. Maybe there are some good things about him that I don't know that I may like, but yeah, I'm rocking with Sonny in this
Well,
hypothetical.
he smoked some bud and burnt the Confederate flag. I
See,
like
that's
that.
that's the one thing I like was the Confederate flag burning. I don't smoke weed, like I rocks with that. But like, come on. If anything,
Well, I
that's
don't smoke
symbolism.
neither. Let
It's
me just
no
be
different
honest.
than
Clear.
Raphael Warnock versus Sonny Johnson. Like, come on. Right, right. Mhm. That fact. That's a fact.
Facts, facts. All right, we're gonna go to our sister Kelly, but real quick, because brother Jonathan is back in the room. I gave y'all a shout out earlier. You know, I see the other victory, right? We racking up W's over here, brother Jonathan. You know what I'm saying? Like we We need to remake that Mayweather meme where he's throwing out money and somebody put the L instead. We need to do that with the W's right now. And this is like I keep saying, it's just the tip of the iceberg, man. We are the new political movement in this country. We are the new civil rights movement. We stand on the shoulders of giants. Now, we don't always come off as professional sounding suit and tie types of dudes. We from the hood, most of us. We'll kick your ass physically and in an intellectual debate. So it comes off a little differently, and I love it. So shout out to my family up in the New England area, man. Y'all putting in that work. We see y'all. Salute. Victory for one is victory for all. And we working on some things with our family up there. So I just want to give them a shout out, man. So go ahead, Sister Kelly, and then I'm gonna shut it down. I gotta eat and shower and all that.
Okay, yeah. So I'll be short. I just want to say and all, and I think Ibrahim kind of hit the nail on the head on what I was gonna say. Not in his words, but with Gary Chambers a long time ago when he did that ad smoking weed. Y'all were right in my head. That to me right then and there just told me everything that I needed to know, that he's not serious. Our people are withering on the vine, and his political campaign is smoking weed. So if anything, I'm offended. I'm not saying, I'm not judging anybody who does or who doesn't, but that shouldn't be your leading political campaign. When your claim to fame was literally like calling out, politicians or elected officials in real time. And then when you have the chance of a lifetime, or, have a moment to really be in a position to do something that's going to help your people, this is what you do. And then the second thing I want to say is that I remembered in that, in the quote unquote debate, I don't think it was a debate because I don't think it was equally yoked for the people and the topic that they were speaking about. But for the sake of the argument, there was a point, and I don't know if you guys remember, we could talk about it another time, when he brought up, Tezlyn kept bringing up to him, or he kept saying how the Democrats' messaging wasn't good, it was not good to us, meaning because we aren't being told enough, it doesn't negate or take away from that there are things that are being done for us, which I thought was a crock of crap. And he even tried to dismiss it or tried to add to it by talking about the taxes and saying how, Democrats are talking about how they're going to tax the rich and all this stuff, when really they need to show, I'm just paraphrasing him, where he said that they need to show basically our people, freedmen people, who are also millionaires or billionaires as well. And he was saying that basically like to prove that means that it wasn't just going to be happening like just to white people, which did not make any sense at all. But for Gary Chambers overall, he's perfect, like Roz said, and what everybody else was kind of saying in their roundabout ways. If you are a professional ear hustler and you don't do the research on your own, then Gary Chambers is the man for you. That's all I can say about that. So it's not about you choosing sides. It's about who was factual and who's going to give you straight information and not play these semantics. And that's what he did throughout that entire debate. And thank you very much.
Indeed. Thank you, everybody that came up to the stage and spoke. Obviously, shout out to my BTP bros. Y'all already know. Shout out to my sister Tezlyn Figaro. Shout out to my sister Sonnie Johnson. And shout out to Gary Chambers. We ain't, just because we disagree with him, we ain't looking at him like that. He's a brother. He's just towing that Democratic Party line, and we're tired of it. And that's what you hear in this space. And one of the things that you consistently hear when we hold our spaces from those, like, we hold intellectual spaces that are fact filled and sourced up. So one of the in our perspectives, we share them because of how we study. We come to a lot of the same conclusions. So one of the things you hear is, man, you took the words right out of my mouth. I was just going to say that, right? What Sister Kelly just said about Ibrahim. And they don't talk every day. Matter of fact, they don't talk at all, right? It's just that we share a perspective based on the fact that we are mired in this research. We are mired in the uplift of our people. And so because of that, we look for the things that will bring us out of the muck and the mire. And it leads us to a lot of the same information, a lot of the same data sets, and it offers us all unique perspectives so that we can share them with the rest of the family. And that's what makes for, to steal my sister Sonnie's phrase, for a fire conversation. So thank you all. This was a fire space. I'll leave you all in the words of the motto, of our platform, which is, don't just fight the power, become the power. And then and only then will you have the power to make a change. And with that, I say peace. And then only then will you have the power to make a change. And with that, I say peace.